Thank you, Mr. Behuria. And as investors, I think we all act on the distilled wisdom of experts in the industry. And obviously, a lot of our actions reflect what they see in industry. But before I begin, interestingly enough, I come from the insurance industry. And our regulator does not believe that gas distribution is actually infrastructure. So in the definition of infrastructure, we don't have gas distribution as part of the infrastructure. So I mean, it's good to see that we can at least try and influence our regulator to tell him that you have to consider this as part of infrastructure. I think if you look at it from an investor perspective, a lot of what my distinguished colleagues and on the panel have said before are what we investors understand. Like there is latent demand, there is existing demand, that there are pricing advantages in using gas over liquid fuels and other fuels, that gas transportation is easier, more cost effective, that it is more environmental friendly. I think very clearly we understand all these macros. But I mean, as investors, especially in the secondary market, and we do have exposure, fairly substantial exposure to most of the players in the gas industry, I think we drill down further and look at a couple of the macros. And if you look at, if as an investor I divide this entire space into, 4 subsectors where we as investors would look at investing, we would obviously, divide them, say, into the upstream companies, the transmission companies, the distribution companies, and the LNG importers. And believe me, you see a dichotomy in where the equity markets have been treating this sector, because whereas the distribution companies and the LNG importers are at their 52-week highs, if not at their all-time highs, like Mr. Garg would say, the upstream guys and the transmission guys are, losing more money than even the markets are losing. And therefore, obviously, there is something that the investors are looking at which, which reflects this particular phenomena. And from the sort of, from what I heard from, the distinguished panel, I mean, there is a great story, a macro story in terms of upstream, but the stock prices do not reflect the actual asset values that these discoveries and the rest of it have. And why is that so? I mean, there has to be a reason, because I'm sure the stock market thinks before it sort of reflects this. And I think one of the reasons is that there is too much uncertainty in terms of where exactly will there be gas in this country, and people are not very sure in terms of the gas supply issues. As investors, I mean, we see that KG D6, when we invested into what we thought was KG D6, we were told it would be 80 MMS CMD, and then it became 60 MMS CMD, and today it's 46 MMS CMD. So we're not too very sure whether there is going to be visibility in terms of gas over the next couple of years, and whether this 46 MMS CMD will go up to 80 MMS CMD, and if so, what's the kind of valuations I need to give to that. Similarly, like for example, if you look at the ONGC gas production fields, we're not very sure, the kind of growth path it will take. So there is a fundamental issue in terms of, what investors can understand from the supply side. We do understand that there are gas supply issues, but if there's clarity in it, there'll be, much easier for us to give valuations to that. If you look at the transmission companies, I think the fundamental problem with the transmission companies is that, threefold. One, clearly, is the fact that, we are not very sure in terms of the kind of transmission volumes that will happen over the next couple of years. And secondly, I think, the tariff regime itself is very confusing to us investors. And from whatever we, analyze and understand, we do believe that, tariffs will come down over time. And this will reflect in sort of lowering ROEs. And therefore, possibly you would see that, values, stock values come down out here. The straight sort of derivative of these two is that capacity utilization, we believe, will come down. And whether capacity utilizations will come down to 60% or 40%, is in the realm of the possible, I suspect. And therefore, obviously, these two, the upstream and the sort of transmission sort of companies, aren't getting the kind of valuations that they should get in this market. On the other hand, you have distribution, and I think the market recognizes the fact that as far as these distribution companies are concerned, till today they have been able to sweat their assets to the maximum. I presume some of these distribution companies are actually operating at possibly over 100% capacity utilization. And therefore, I think from a price to earnings perspective, a lot of these companies are quoting at 18 times, 19 times 1 year forward, which clearly reflects the fact that people do believe that there is latent demand. They do believe that both piped gas and city gas distribution have got tremendous opportunities in this country. There are tremendous opportunities for that. And till such time as people are able to sweat their assets, they should do very well. But then from here where? Because at 18, 19 times, these stocks are no longer cheap. And if I, as an investor, wanted to take exposure, I sometimes wonder whether I should be buying it so expensive. And lastly, in terms of LNG imports, I think that there is this latent demand, and everybody does believe that there is a window where these companies will do well, because even if you remove the priority sectors, you will find that the industrial sector and the other consuming sectors, it still makes economic sense for them to sort of to use LNG for their requirements. And therefore, till such time as that latent demand is not met, LNG imports, I presume, till a particular price will make a lot of sense. From a much, much broader angle, and I think this is a point which Mr. Sharma did raise, is that we as investors do believe that there should be less ad hocism in terms of pricing. Now, it is not for us to suggest how pricing should be, but what we would like to do is we would like to have certainty in pricing. And if we do believe that the pricing is moving towards a market-driven pricing mechanism, what we would actually like to see is what that path exactly is, and how is it that we are going to move towards a market-driven pricing mechanism, because today we don't seem to sort of see too much over there. Just to pick up a very few more points, as far as LNG is concerned, whereas, I mean, we do believe that LNG is an important, will form an important part to bridge the gap. I'm very, very sure that LNG itself, I mean, it is not merely the availability of LNG, but also the price at which LNG will be made available to the users that's going to become very, very important. And user industries downstream obviously will have to take a call in terms of whether they will be buying LNG at that price or not. And in terms of gas pricing itself, as we heard before, LNG seems to have hit its peak at $15 on the spot, and possibly beyond a point of time, forgetting even the fertilizer and the power sector, a lot of other people may find that use of LNG beyond a particular price may not really, the economics may not really work out. And this brings us to a fundamental issue that will this at some point of time actually sort of curtail demand for gas in this country? Because we've seen that gas demand has been growing at close to 1.2 times GDP in the past. But if pricing becomes such a key issue in this, will we see demand constricting to 4-5% of to a 4-5% CAGR over the next couple of years? Because if this does happen, then it sort of changes the entire situation and the way we would look at how to invest into these kind of companies. In terms of gas pooling, which some of my panelists did mention, frankly, we don't know how to react, because we do hear, 1 month we do hear people saying that gas pooling is something we will look at. Then we have an intermediate ministerial committee that comes back and says that maybe gas pooling is not the right way of going about doing things. There are criticism of gas pool. There is criticism of gas pooling saying that you are subsidizing one sector against another sector. There are sort of advantages of gas pooling because at the marginal level, there are break-even points, both even in the power sector and in the fertilizer sector, which can sort of benefit from this gas pooling. And therefore, I think that becomes an issue which obviously needs to be addressed at some point of time. And I think only once it gets addressed would we be able to take you know, a more sort of considered view on this. And lastly, in terms of you know, the kind of capital that is required, I think the biggest fear that all of us have is that, for example, if you're talking about pipeline capacity creation, and if you're going to put in money for pipeline capacity creation, is it that we will put capital that, I mean, we will create these capacities that won't work in the future? Because even for gas, for example, we're talking about, you know, a fair amount of pipeline capacity that is needed over the next couple of years. But if it's only 43% or 55% capacity utilization, then obviously, you know, as investors, the kind of ROEs that we will get from these kind of investments, you know, won't really sort of pay off. So I just thought I'd highlight some of the concerns. But the markets obviously seem to believe today that you know, polarization is the best way of tackling this. Invest into companies where latent domestic demand will sort of keep these companies afloat, the gas distributors and the LNG guys, and sort of don't invest into those companies where there are uncertainties in terms of policy, in terms of pricing, in terms of visibility, like the upstream companies and the transmission companies. Thank you.